Hey, what's up guys, it's Lance again. Wait, I just wanted to give you guys a review of the new Jay-Z album, 444. It just released, I believe, on June 30th. It's July 2nd or July 3rd now, I'm not sure. And it's a really good album, first of all. I just want to get that off the bat. It's a really good album. I think it's one of the best that Jay-Z has done in a while. I think it's really tight. I think it's really dope. Every song has its own little merit, its own little point that it's trying to get across. There's really not really too much filler in this album at all. Jay-Z, you know, hadn't done an album since Magna Carta, Holy Grail, since I believe it was 2012 or 2011, and that was more of like a pop-ish type filler rap kind of stuff. I liked it for the most part. Didn't think it was all that, honestly. The longevity kind of went away from me after like listening to it a few times. It wasn't necessarily one of those things that I could, you know, hear over and over and over again. He hadn't done an album like this in a while, and looking at the track list, especially like hearing the songs for about like 3 times that I did, and understanding the subliminal shots that he was taking, the subtext and everything that was underlying with this album, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really solid album. I could break it down like song by song, track by track, see what I liked, what I didn't like, maybe if I have anything to dislike, because I can't really think of anything right off the bat, but I'm pretty sure that once I go through everything, you know, we'll be able to like break it down. The first track on this album is Killing Jay-Z, or Kill Jay-Z. Basically this song is just a whole bunch of like insults on his ego. I believe that's what he was trying to go for with this. Obviously there's some subliminal shots at Kanye West. He mentions the little incident with Solange that happened a couple of years ago when they were in the elevator and Solange had kind of attacked him in front of Beyonce, his wife, and just kind of like sets the tone for the entire album. He just insults himself. Oh, I think it's more about his ego. It's more about like him just trying to like set himself apart from everybody else. So like I think it was a really good opener. The instrumental is really good. His flow is very good. Like the music, the lyrics, everything that kind of like flows together with this, it was kind of very well put together. It's not one of the best songs on the album, however it does pack a punch. It does bring light to some topics that people have been speculating for a while, including with Kanye West, and it's probably one of the reasons why Kanye West recently just left Tidal. Alright, so that's it for the first track. The second track, The Story of OJ. Basically Jay-Z goes around talking about wealth and the economy of black people. He mentions the Jews. He mentions how like O.J. Simpson back in the day used to say that he wasn't black, he was O.J. However, you can't necessarily be like, oh, you're not black. It doesn't matter if you're a house, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter if you're like a field, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter what kind of breed of black you are, you still are black. And that's kind of the point where he's trying to make when he keeps on repeating the same lyrics over and over and over again. And he makes the point in which when he says stuff about OJ, he's actually just like, oh yeah, okay, you don't think you're black? Okay, alright. Of course he mentions how like he could have bought a house or a building in Dumbo before it was Dumbo for $2 million. Nowadays it's worth $25 million. He kind of has like a little commentary on a little bit of gentrification in Brooklyn, which there's a lot of going on, including Williamsburg and Dumbo and all these other places, including Bushwick. So it's including Bed-Stuy. So it's like one of those things in which he's kind of like subliminally, or maybe under the subtext, is just talking a little bit about gentrification as well, you know, as well as the wealth amongst the black community. Yeah, I think it was really an interesting commentary. The song Smile, I really like this track, I really do. It's, you know, he kind of gets a little bit personal here. He talks about his mom, you know, a mother's upbringing, the fact that maybe she was a lesbian, however she was, you know, raising these children and she had to stay in the closet, and she technically, you know, had to go through all of that while, you know, not being true to herself. Yeah, I think it's a really good song. I really enjoyed it. Caught in Their Eyes featuring Frank Ocean. I think it's a nice addition by Frank Ocean. He, you know, has some little lyrics here and there. It kind of repeats itself. It's in the chorus. I think it's one of his more commercial songs on the album. It's one of the most upbeat songs on the album. I enjoyed it. I don't necessarily believe that it's one of his best on the album. I think it's actually one of his lesser songs on the album, to be quite honest. Didn't really like get into it after like maybe the first or second time or third time listening to it, so I think that's kind of one of the reasons why personally it didn't get to me. But I do think it's one of those songs that kind of does stand out from the rest, and specifically because of his instrumental usage, and it's just background music, and the fact that it's more of one of his outgoing songs of the album. I think that that's one of the best ways to describe it. The title of the album song, 444, apparently the reason why it's called 444 is because Jay-Z literally woke up at 4:44 a.m. and started to write the song, and he claims it's one of the best songs he's ever written, if not the best song he's ever written. It's a really good song. He basically, you know, goes on talking about, you know, love and how he sucks at it, and how he begs for forgiveness from this certain woman, and we're all pretty sure, like, listening to it, that it's Beyonce, especially with that recent Lemonade track or album that she came out with last year. He says that he never wanted another woman, suck as a love, you know, he just wants to like do over. And yeah, it's a really good song. I could understand why he feels like it's one of the best songs he's ever written, because I feel like his love and passion for Beyonce is so great that he feels whenever he's trying to like write about her or anything, when he tries to do anything artistically or creatively involving one of, you know, many loves of his life, if not the love of his life, he obviously has a great passion for it, and it kind of shows with this track. And I really enjoyed it personally. I think it's actually one of his best on the album. Next song we have Family Feud. You know, he talks about wealth again, and amongst the black community. Talks about, you know, how there's no such thing as an ugly billionaire. Obviously, the whole stigma against Jay-Z, if anybody has a stigma against Jay-Z, it's because of how he looks compared to like maybe his wife or whatever. And you know, he doesn't obviously, he brings it with this one, you know, song that he doesn't care about any of that. He's gonna be a billionaire either way. He has about $810 million in the bank. He doesn't really care about that. He also talks about black-owned businesses. You know, he also kind of briefly mentions Becky, who is a person in which Beyonce had mentioned in her previous album Lemonade. Nobody wins, the family feuds. He talks about, I think he's just talking about like the black community in general, you know, begging for you know, I guess the black community to kind of unify and necessarily stop criticizing each other, and like nobody wins in this situation. We have to start building wealth together, this and that. I think that's what he's kind of like trying to embody. Bam is the next song that he talks about. It features a interesting instrumental by Damian Marley, which I think it could have done without, honestly. I didn't think that it really added too much to the song. You know, it talks about helping, you know, people sell kilos of coke and things like that, drugs and everything like that. Just like him, what's going on in his mind. He's kind of bringing out this different character, in which I kind of understand. It's definitely a good song. I think it's kind of like a hit or miss for some people, but I think that it's okay. It's not that bad at all. Next song on the album is Moonlight. Jay-Z talks about how, like, when the Oscars came about earlier this year in February, La La Land had initially won Best Picture. However, they had to give it up to Moonlight because there was a mistake in receiving the cards. Stuck in La La Land, I guess, amongst like especially like young rappers, and how, you know, there needs to be more originality. I think what he's trying to say is like we're going in that direction in which, you know, we got the same moves, we have the same watches, we have the same this and that necessarily. However, it's just like we still lose. When we win, we lose. So it's like kind of like that. I think he's just trying to make a commentary on the whole industry and where it's going. He's using obviously Moonlight as an example of that. One of my favorite films of last year, along with La La Land, so whatever. But he uses this whole thing about how we're stuck in La La Land. However, I do think it's a little bit of a filler song. I don't necessarily believe that it stands on its own at all. It needs to be in an album. Obviously, it's about only, I think it's under 2 minutes long. I don't think that necessarily needs to be there. It could complement the whole album in general. However, but this is kind of like a filler song. It's not necessarily something you would listen to just by off the bat. Marcy Me talks about his beginnings in the Marcy housings, I believe. And, you know, it's basically just straight rap. You know, it has a soft, melancholic instrumental. definitely a good song. I think that it's actually one of the best written songs on the album. Jay-Z really goes hard with it. You know, it talks about everything that he's gone through very briefly, but he just talks about his beginnings growing up in Brooklyn, and you can kind of hear that, you can feel that with his voice. Really brings it on this song. I really enjoyed it. And Marcy Me, I think, is one of the best songs, if not the best song on the album. He ends it off with Legacy, the last song on this album. Kind of feels like the end of an album song. He talks about his legacy, what he's going to leave behind. A little kid just says, "Daddy, what's a will?" So like, it's kind of like one of those things in which he's kind of just like thinking about what's going to happen when his generation, or just him is in general, is just gone, and you're left with the new generation and how they're going to be influenced by his work and by his music. What's going to happen, black excellency, and you know, he talks about this, and like, he just feels as if though, oh okay, you know, what is going to happen when I'm gone. And yeah, and I think it's a really good song. Definitely a pretty decent track. Not bad at all. Overall, this album is not bad at all. This album is actually pretty good. I honestly couldn't find too many flaws with this album. I really think it stands alone personally as one of the best albums of the year, and if not the best rap album of the year, at least one of the best. I feel like Jay-Z goes in a different direction than he has done in his previous albums recently, at least. Really enjoyed it. I listened to it about 3 or 4 times already. Probably gonna listen to it again a whole bunch of more times. I think it has a good longevity. I honestly think it's better than Damn, which was Kendrick Lamar's album that he released earlier this year. Personally, after listening to that album like maybe 10 times, couldn't really find too many songs that I enjoyed listening over and over and over again. But I feel like this album as a whole weighs in better than that album personally. And while I don't believe it's a perfect album, even though I couldn't find too many flaws, it didn't necessarily like blow me away. However, it's still a really good solid album, and if I had to rate it on a F to A scale, letter scale, I think I would give it a B+ to A-, so B+ to A-. It's really good. I'd recommend everybody to hear it if they haven't already. It's such a good album, and Jay-Z is back, and I hope that, you know, this is not his last venture. I understand he's a businessman, he works hard and everything else that he's doing, so hopefully he comes back to music sooner than later. And this is definitely a great entry into his discography. So yeah, anyway, that was my little review of Jay-Z's 13th studio album, 444, and this is Lance AT. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.